One of my most frequently asked questions is, what type of throwing knife should I get? Well, when I first went into throwing, I decided I'm gonna throw in my small indoor apartment, so I need a small knife because a smaller knife means I don't get hurt and I won't get holes in the walls. So my first set was this. They're a set of throwing spades, 4 inches in length, around 3/4 an ounce each. Uh, and they're probably the worst because since they're so light, they ricochet super quick, and when something ricochets that quick, you can't dodge, and therefore you get hit. So these I've actually tasted my blood, so we're blood brothers. So don't go for small and don't go for light in weight. I also have these, and these are pretty popular. They're Hibben imitation throwing knives. Once again, they're pretty much almost the same in length, and I just don't like this length. It's just hard to control when you're throwing these ones. So these, I thought, oh my god, these are huge. They're around 8 inches in length, and I thought they'd be better, but I was scared throwing these because I thought I'd really hurt myself. But, I mean, they're actually not big enough. I mean, even though they look pretty big. Now, but the difference in these two, this is pretty light and this is a little heavier. So I actually like this a little bit more for the length. So these knives are the one I most commonly see on the web. They're cheap in price, but if you really want to get into throwing, you don't want to go with these knives. In any case, if you really wanted to go with a smaller knife just to get, your range down, go with some butter knives. I got these for pretty cheap at Marshall's. This is an 8-inch butter knife, and I think this is 9 inches. 6 inches. I really like these for nose spin, just because they're so smooth and they go twang when you hit into the target. So I really like them. They're just good to build into your repertoire, and if you're ever in a restaurant and someone attacks you, at least you can throw with a butter knife. So always think that, oh, butter knives aren't sharp, they can't stick into your target. Well, actually, throwing knives aren't sharp. They shouldn't be sharp, actually. What's important is the point. So as long as it has a point of some sort, then you're good to go. I like to throw from 6 feet with these small throwers. Now, if you want to get into the longer distances, you need to upgrade to a bigger knife. So I really suggest a knife that's around 12 inches or longer in length. These are my Cold Steel Sure Flight throwers, discontinued by Cold Steel. I don't know why, but they're an awesome knife. Good for spin throwing, good for no spin throwing because there's no bump or no handle, so when you brush your finger along the spine, it's really easy to control. So they're great for no spin and great for spin throws too. But because they're so light, they're a little flimsy at long distances. When I try to throw from 18 and 24 feet, they're just kind of all over the place. So I had to upgrade to a heavier knife. Now, the heavier knife I upgraded to was Bailey Boker Zeil knives designed by John Bailey. 13 inches long. Yeah, around 13 inches long and around 10 ounces. So they're a little heavier. This is I think these are around 8 ounces and these are 10 ounces. So a little heavier, which is good. Slim design, easy to hold, easy to throw. Good for spin throwing, but not really good for no spin if you're wanting to go into the no spin technique. The reason why is because of this bump right in the middle. Now, because of the bump, when you grab your knife, right, usually, well, when I grab mine, I usually kind of choke up on it and I can feel where it is. So when I brush my finger down the spine, I mean, this just gets in the way. So you actually, you have to consciously figure out where that bump is to be able to do no spin. So it makes it slower for the no spin technique, but great for spin throw. Alright, so one thing about these knives that I don't like is that when you first get them, the tips are so thin that eventually they bend like an L, and those tips will eventually break off. My instructor has the same knives and he had the same problem, so it's not just a fluke with these knives. Now, it's not too bad because if you have a grinder, you can just grind back and recontour the edges, which is what my instructor helped me do with these knives. So, I mean, that's the best thing to do, and after that, you don't have to worry about the tips breaking off. It's fine after that. So that's the one thing you should be aware of with this knife. Now, for the Cold Steel challenge, you can only use Cold Steel knives. So I knew that these were light and I needed to go with a bigger knife. So I went with these knives. These are what I would call very manly throwers. They're 13 and 3/8 inches long. They weigh 1 pound and 2 ounces, and they're just a really awesome thrower. And around, if you throw them from 24 feet, it makes the best sound. It goes. Another gripe I have with this knife is that it was actually too sharp at the ends. Once again, you don't want a sharp throwing knife, because if you want to get your distances, you'll have to do handle and blade throws, and I'll talk about that later. But you don't want the blade to be sharp. I actually ended up cutting myself when I first tried a blade throw, so my instructor actually helped grind down that part too, and helped actually flatten this out a little bit, so it's a little better now. But great knife. Really like these knives. So these are the Cold Steel Sure Balance throwers. Really awesome knife. One thing I like about these 3 different sets of throwing knives that I have is that it's a solid piece of metal. If you notice, there's no handle attached to it. What I see commonly with knives with handles, they sell replacement handles because they know that the handles will break off. I mean, that should be an indicator of why not to get a thrower with a handle on it. I throw with a throwing group, and they have handles on their throwers, and they eventually have to tape them up. So I'd rather not deal with that whole hassle and just get a solid piece of metal for my thrower. So overall, what you want to do if you are choosing a throwing knife, get a knife that's around 12 inches or longer in length, maybe between 12 and 16 inches. Go with something heavy in size. Once again, a solid piece of metal. If you want to get into nose spin, the best shape to get is this shape, because there's no bump and it's very smooth, and there's a continuous flow between your index finger and the spine of the knife. And lastly, get multiples. So if you notice, all my throwing knives, my magic number is 6. I have 6 of each, and that's only to get my muscle memory down for each knife. So don't just go with 1, go with 6. In terms of price, all my knives, this was $8 a piece, this was $19 a piece, and this was $11 a piece. So they're actually not too expensive, and they work fine for me. If you go for custom knives, which I haven't done yet, but they run between $30 and $50 a piece, which is a little pricey, especially if you want to get 6. So just so you know, the cheaper price isn't too bad, but the bigger the length, the better, and heavier is better. And the smaller knives, I would say, you know, put those into your collection, but the bigger knives are the way to go. This and this, they're all the most commonly